Hey everyone, welcome to our video about safety in the chemistry classroom. I'm going to give you a general set of guidelines about how to stay safe when doing labs in my class. Safety is very important to me. Science is hands-on. You eventually might be doing lab activities that require the use of hazardous chemicals or expensive lab equipment. And we don't want you to get hurt or waste expensive lab equipment. Like I said, safety is my number one priority. It's safety first, very important to me. I recognize that at this point in time, we might not be doing as many hands-on lab activities. You might be 100% online, and you probably won't be able to do some of these activities at home, though you'll be able to watch videos of them. If you're a hybrid student, at this point in time, we have to wait for more guidelines about doing labs and sharing equipment. So, in the meantime, I'll be doing some demonstration labs. Safety is important whether you're doing the hands on lab or not, because eventually you might be doing the hands on lab, or if you see me doing something unsafe, please call me out. Like I said, safety is very important. If you get nothing else from this important message, please know that safety matters. Now, to make sure the science classroom is safe, I have a list of rules to provide you with safety, and they're listed in your safety contract. A signed lab safety contract is required in order for you to participate in all labs. This was done for you guys last week in Canvas. It was a Google form. So if you participated in that Google form, then you're good to go and you're going to be ready to go for any sort of labs that you might be able to participate in later in the year. Here's some general guidelines. You've got to be responsible. Most of you are in 11th or 12th grade and you know how to do things the correct way. You're not going to engage in horseplay, jokes, or pranks when you're in the lab setting because it could be dangerous. You're going to follow all instructions. This is typically a rule in my class anyway, even if you're just sitting in your desk. So make sure when you move into the lab setting that you're also following instructions. Never touch lab equipment or do anything with lab equipment until I've asked you to do so. Also, please don't chew gum, eat food, or drink substances in the lab area. Putting on makeup in those areas is also not a good plan. I want you to keep in mind that I'm not the only one that's responsible for keeping you safe in the lab setting. Everybody is responsible for lab safety. Me, you, your lab partner. Make sure that you're aware of yourself and choosing to do the right and responsible thing. If you're in the lab, make sure that you're keeping the room clean and organized. We don't want to have tripping hazards so that people would fall and have trouble getting the lab done safely. Notify me, let me know right away if there are any accidents like spills or breaks like broken glass, and or if there's any sort of unsafe conditions. Also, another safety tip is to wash your hands with soap and water after any experiment. If this goes for even if you had gloves on, it's just a good way to make sure that any chemicals are off of your skin and that any germs that you might have picked up from touching the lab equipment are also gone. Like I said earlier, I'm going to emphasize this. Everybody, not just me, is responsible for lab safety. Eye protection is one of the first steps for safety in a chemistry classroom. You've got to wear your goggles when you're working with chemicals, flames, or heat. If chemicals get in your eyes, you're going to have to wash them at the eye station for 15 minutes. Your clothing is also important. You got to consider making sure that you're properly dressed for the lab. Wear clothing that is not loose or baggy. You're also going to wear lab aprons to cover your clothing and protect your body a little bit more. And your shoes must cover your feet. So, no sandals and high heels are typically not a good idea. So, no open toed shoes. Make sure they're closed toed and protecting your feet. Sharp objects might be used at some point in time in the lab. If you're using any sort of knife or sharp object, always point that downwards or cut away from your finger or body. If you're using an electrical device, don't place the cord where someone could trip and fall, and never use it around water. When we leave the lab, I expect that you will unplug any equipment before you leave so that there couldn't be some sort of power surge that sparks a fire. If you're heating a material, you must tie back your loose hair and get rid of any loose clothing, because if you have loose clothing or hair and open flames, that could catch on fire. And if your hair is burning, it's going to smell very, very, very bad. Never look directly into a container that you're heating. That could boil or splash and hit you in the eye and be very dangerous. Heated metal or glass, like a beaker, for example, looks the same whether it's hot or cold. So if you're using heat, assume it's hot and use tongs or glove before handling it. Never leave a heat source unattended. Never light a Bunsen burner and walk away. With Bunsen burners, there's a proper way to light them. You first light your match or get your striker ready, and then you turn on the gas. You don't want to let a bunch of gas out into the room and then light a match. It could cause an explosion. When you're working in chemistry, you're going to need to know about the chemicals you're using. Always read and reread a second time any labels that you're looking at. Pay attention to any warnings about the chemical that you're using. Think about if it's volatile or if it could harm your skin if it touches your skin. Be aware of what you're using, read labels, and pay attention to warnings. Never take chemicals out of the chemistry classroom. That's a very bad idea, especially because some of them may be dangerous. If you're using chemicals, never touch, taste, or smell a chemical unless I tell you to. And if you do smell it, you can see in the picture down below, those guys are wafting the scent towards their nose rather than putting their nose right in the beaker. Never, ever, ever use your mouth with a pipette to suck liquid up. There are pipette bulbs that can help you do that, so never use your mouth. And always make sure you transfer chemicals carefully. Here's going to be some more information about doing that. Make sure you pour from larger containers into smaller ones. You can use a funnel if you need to. And always add acid. Add acid into water. Or as my mom used to say to me, add acid into water like you oughta. So where you are combining acid and water, do not pour that water into the acid. It can cause a reaction that heats up very, very quickly. Make sure that you're pouring acid into water. Add acid. All right, if you're working with something volatile that could have strong fumes or could possibly spark fire, you need to work under the fume hood, which carries that away. Hand safety. If a chemical spills on your skin, you have to let me know, and you got to let me know right away. We're going to have to rinse your skin for 15 minutes to make sure that it is decontaminated from any hazardous chemical that might have spilled on it. That could be under the sink. If it spills on your body, you're going to have to use the safety shower. So always carry glassware carefully so that that doesn't happen. Glassware. If you're using glassware, make sure that it's not chipped or cracked or damaged. If it has a star crack or just a line or just a chip out of the edge, it is not safe to use anymore and we'll have to replace it. Other equipment that's in the room is a fire blanket, a fire extinguisher, a safety shower, and an eye wash station, and I also have first aid materials. You should also be familiar with the escapes, ways to get out of the building if there is a fire. If you're a hybrid student, you've already seen where this equipment is. And if you're an online student who eventually comes into school, I will be sure to show you and let you know where all of this equipment and our escapes are. If you have to use a fire extinguisher, remember the acronym PASS. PASS. Pull the pin, aim the hose at the base of the fire from 5 or 6 feet away, squeeze the handle, and sweep the hose back and forth across the fire. If you're on fire, stop, drop, and roll. We'll probably bring the fire blanket to you to smother the flames as well. Before you go out of a lab ever, make sure that you've returned chemicals and equipment to their proper place. Replace lids on all containers. Clean up your work area as instructed by your teacher, and dispose of any waste material according to instructions that I've given to you or that are in the procedure. You don't want to dump all of the different chemicals that we would use down the drain without specific instructions. So make sure you let me know before you're going to get rid of any waste materials, and I will make sure you do that properly. I hope you've enjoyed this video about safety. Thank you so much for listening.